Discover how one delivery girl transformed a failed project for 30 engineers into millions. Mia darted through the streets of San Jose, the hum of busy traffic blending into the rhythmic beat of her heart. At 24, she was more than just a delivery girl. She was the backbone of her family. The weight of her single mother's struggles, the burden of her younger brother's needs, pressed down on her shoulders like an impenetrable fog. With every order she dropped off, her determination soared, yet the sparkle in her eyes often dulled with reminders of their cramped apartment and stacks of unpaid bills that loomed over their lives like a dark storm cloud. As she approached the glossy high-rise of a tech firm, her mind raced. What would it take to rise above her reality? She navigated past sleek cars and sharp-dressed workers, doubt trailing her like a shadow. Would her efforts ever bring true freedom? With a sigh, she went to make the delivery, her heartbeat echoing in sync with the oppressive knowledge of her situation. Entering the lobby, Mia spotted a group of 30 engineers huddled together, faces furrowed with discontent. Their energy enveloped her, whispers of lost dreams weaving around the space, and the stark contrast to her grit hit her. They were trapped in the web of a failed project that once promised so much. For a moment she paused, watching them. In their tired eyes, she glimpsed her own struggles reflected back at her, each one fighting to stay afloat. If they were anchored by doubt, then she was tethered to the fear of never being enough. Before she could shake those thoughts, a voice inside quivered with uncertainty. Who was she to think she could help them? Yet seeing their despair ignited something within her. Mia approached, feeling the weight of their hopes. They shared stories filled with ambition and disappointment over late-night coffee at the diner, where laughter often masked the underlying anguish of unrealized potential. As the engineers studied their failed proposal, Mia discovered powerful ideas hidden beneath layers of corporate indifference. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue. Mia felt an inexplicable pull towards their situation. If she could piece together a revitalized proposal for them, maybe it wouldn't just save their project. Maybe it could lift her family from their relentless cycle of struggle. But as the plans began to take shape, doubts crept in like uninvited shadows. Would the engineers even respect her? Could she convince them this delivery girl had the insight to turn their dreams into reality? With each brainstorming session, her anxiety crescendoed. There were moments where laughter cracked the heaviness, but soon tension would settle back in like an unwelcome guest. The real test loomed ahead, but the timing was crucial. As she practiced her pitch in the mirror, a familiar figure emerged in her thoughts, yet unbidden. Just as she gathered courage to face the boardroom, the shadows of her past threatened to rise again, a fear of failure gnawing at her resolve. As the crucial meeting approached, her heart raced. Would she have the strength to embrace their dreams and challenge the barriers against her? The echo of their ambitions resonated in Mia, bonded by the knowledge of hard work, yet the impending moment stretched before her like a jagged cliff. Doubt and determination collided in a relentless storm, leaving only questions hanging in the air as the boardroom doors loomed closer, an unresolved fate dripping with tension, leaving her breathless. Mia stood just outside the boardroom, her fingers pressed against the cool glass door, the sterile environment blurring in her focus. Inside, the engineers shuffled papers and shared muted conversations, oblivious to the impending change she hoped to bring. Each heartbeat drummed louder, drowning out the usual hum of her surroundings, a gradual symphony of anxiety and resolve. As her gaze darted toward the meeting room, she began to replay everything she had learned from the engineers. Their fierce debates, their myriad ideas, and dreams hidden within complex jargon. She had become their confidant, absorbing their frustrations while piecing together their visions into one coherent plan. But now, standing on the precipice of that moment, the fear of inadequacy gripped her firmly. Could she translate their collective anxiety into something actionable? She inhaled deeply, allowing the air to fill her lungs as she whispered to herself a mantra she had adopted during late-night study breaks. "You are more than this." It sealed a flicker of determination radiating from the depths of her core. With a clenched fist reflecting her newfound conviction, she pushed through the door. The room fell into an expectant silence, 30 heads turning toward her at once. Mia felt as if the walls themselves leaned in, keenly aware of her presence. Clear-headed, she approached the central table, where a projector illuminated the failed proposal, its unpolished edges hinting at lost potential. "Thank you all for the opportunity," she began, her voice steady, masking the tremor threatening to escape. "I know you've put in countless hours on this project, and I want to help you refine it." She felt their surprise wash over her, like a wave of uncertainty, but she pressed on. "Let's pivot from what hasn't worked to what can work." With the engineers leaning in, she outlined the restructuring of their original ideas. Focusing on the strengths of their individual roles, she suggested a collaborative branding approach that could rejuvenate interest from stakeholders. Each suggestion flowed from her like a current, both raw and refined, the presentation taking shape as she spoke. Halfway through her pitch, a hand shot up from the back of the room, a young engineer with wide eyes. "What do you know about tech startups? You don't have a degree in this field?" Mia's heart sank briefly, but the fire sparked again. "True, I don't have the qualifications on paper, but I've lived through struggles that require innovation and grit. My family needs more than tomorrow's paycheck, and so do you. Let me leverage our strengths to create a project that illustrates the humanity behind the tech." The moment hung in the air, precarious and charged. She'd thrown down the gauntlet, inviting confrontation, yet also illustrating her unique perspective as a person who faced daily obstacles. Would they recognize her self-awareness as an asset? Murmurs filled the room, a cacophony of voices assessing her proposition. She retreated momentarily into her thoughts, battling an internal debate. Was this acceptance what she truly desired, or was it simply validation for her relentless dedication? Standing firm, she braced herself for whatever response was to come. As she waited, the clock's ticking grew louder, wrestling against her racing thoughts. Would they embrace this shift, or dismiss her due to their deeply entrenched notions of expertise? Then the tension shattered when Richard, the lead engineer, leaned back in his chair, studying her with a mix of curiosity and respect. "Okay, let's hear more. We might just need to redefine the narrative." Mia's breath caught, both excited and terrified at what this meant. She had gained a foothold, but the real challenge awaited. Not just transforming the project, but proving herself among engineers whose trust was hard-won. What would happen next? How far would they be willing to venture with her at the helm? The stakes had been raised, leaving her longing for direction, driven by the urgency of her family's needs. As they dove into the discussions that followed, both opportunity and uncertainty spiraled around her like a whirlwind. Would this newfound alliance lead to redemption or deeper disillusionment? The answer remained just out of reach. Mia's presence in the conference room was a moment of quiet revolution, her heart racing as she navigated through ideas, projections, and the engineers' skeptical faces. The palpable tension bounced off the walls like static electricity, filling the air with both uncertainty and potential. Each detail she presented, rebranding, accountability, and collaboration, felt like a lifeline thrown into a turbulent sea. "Let's break down the technical aspects and align ourselves with the market trends," she urged, her voice gaining confidence with every point she made. The engineers were shifting in their seats, their expressions oscillating between skepticism and curiosity. The familiar fear of inadequacy loomed. Could she really steer this collective into something viable? As questions and objections began to surface, a glint of determination settled inside her. When a seasoned engineer, Leah, challenged Mia's plans by saying, "This isn't a feel-good project. We need numbers, data, real evidence." Mia felt the sting of doubt, but she responded instead with clarity. "Numbers tell part of the story, Leah, but they can't capture the essence of why we do this," she countered, her tone straddling between frustration and passion. "Let's merge the analytical with the human element. People want to connect with our technology. If we can show them the impact, the numbers will follow." The room quieted, pondering her perspective. In that silence, she seized her moment. She had been observing the engineers for weeks. She knew their strengths, weaknesses, and even their passions. This project was more than just metrics. It was a chance to forge relationships that the market could sense. Richard nodded thoughtfully. "What if we create a prototype that focuses on user experience features, something that reflects both innovation and empathy?" Mia recognized this as a pivotal moment. She leaned in, her eyes focused on Richard. "That's exactly it. Let's build something that resonates and invites engagement. We can develop a narrative behind our product that connects us to our audience, turning technical intricacies into a compelling story." As discussions intensified, Mia found herself rapidly sketching concepts on a whiteboard, guiding them toward a collective vision. The transformation was startling. The energy in the room shifted from defensive to collaborative. Idea after idea flowed, revealing hidden talents within her colleagues. She unearthed new connections that no one had anticipated. Each suggestion she made echoed back, lending strength to what had felt daunting moments earlier. However, the unease nestled within her did not dissipate completely. Would this new path not only invigorate the project, but also validate her presence here? As teams began delegating tasks and forming smaller groups, she caught Richard's eye across the table. His respect felt real and grounded, but how long could it last? After the meeting, as the engineers headed out, Mia found herself lingering, replaying what had just unfolded. The adrenaline still pulsing through her veins, she captured the moment within her mind. No longer an outsider, she was slowly forging her way into their intricate ecosystem. Yet, as exhilaration washed over her, another encroaching fear crept in. Was it truly her ideas they accepted, or the fresh perspective she represented? The looming challenge felt more profound. How would she navigate the evolving dynamics among experienced professionals? She knew it would take more than one meeting to solidify her place in their world. As she gathered her things and left the conference room, Mia reflected on her journey, grateful but aware that uncertainty still draped over her ambitions. What lay ahead was an intricate dance, one that required skill and a steadiness she was still discovering within herself. Would she be able to secure her newfound position while pushing the project forward? With a determined step, Mia headed toward her next task, knowing that the true trial of her capabilities had just begun. But deep down, she questioned, would her efforts be enough to transform not just the project, but also the perception of who she was capable of becoming? As the door closed behind her, a new chapter of tense possibilities awaited, brimming with questions left to explore. Mia's momentum carried her toward the next phase of her mission, the pulse of her ambition threading through her veins like a live wire. Stepping into her office, the contrast was striking. There was safety in these walls, yet the weight of unfulfilled potential loomed large. She knew it was time to step further into the knowledge abyss she had wrestled with for so long. As she sank into her chair, Mia opened her laptop, the screen lighting up with a surge of expectation. She began exploring user experience research, drowning herself in case studies, industry reports, and trending technology news. What Richard had suggested thrummed within her, a palpable rhythm of ideas waiting to emerge. Her fingers danced across the keyboard, weaving together knowledge and emotion, statistics and storytelling, each click like a heartbeat marking her journey forward. Hours passed as she cataloged her findings, piecing together insights with a fervor that astonished even her. Yet, with each breakthrough, shadows of doubt crept in. Was she merely reflecting what she had learned, or was she genuinely innovating? The thundering skepticism she battled with in the conference room echoed in her mind. Her heart sank at the thought of being unserious or uninformed, just a half-formed idea in a corporate landscape of giants. It was the late afternoon when Mia's phone chimed, a notification from Leah, the seasoned engineer who had initially challenged her. "Let's meet to discuss the prototype you mentioned. I have some ideas to bring to the table," it read. Her stomach tightened with anxiety, but she reminded herself of the transformed energy in the conference room, the camaraderie that had briefly sparked a connection between concept and reality. She quickly replied, setting an impromptu meeting for the next day. As the evening settled in, Mia scribbled thoughts in her notebook, desperate to align her newfound research with practical applications for the prototype. She sketched user journeys, emotional touchpoints, and technical specs, all while tracing an invisible thread of intent connecting every component. Clarity began to emerge from the chaos, and suddenly she wasn't just piecing together a plan for a project, but outlining a narrative that would breathe life into it. Determination surged within her. She envisioned the prototype not just as a product, but a vital conversation with its users, one that would beckon them into a shared experience where their needs were understood and prioritized. The impending meeting loomed ahead like a tightrope stretched across the chasm of doubt. Could she propel her ideas into the heart of this team and inspire them to embrace a radical new direction? As she fell into a restless sleep, her mind replayed the day's events, each moment a step on her path toward becoming more than just a voice in the room. Yet the question persisted: would the engineers be ready to embrace her vision, or would they pull her back into the shadows of skepticism? Dawn broke, an insistent reminder of the potential waiting to be realized. She arrived at the meeting, breath steady, papers in hand, a blend of data and narrative ready to unfurl. Leah was already there, the room heavy with anticipation. What began as a meeting felt more like a battleground where she had to defend not only her ideas, but her place among the seasoned experts. Mia's heart raced as she prepared to pitch her insights, understanding that each word she spoke held the power to either elevate her standing or reinforce her fears. The moment felt pivotal. Her journey was no longer just about the project. It was a chance to confront her fear of inadequacy head-on. As the discussion unfolded, she quickly realized that Leah wasn't merely a skeptic. She was a catalyst for deeper exploration. Would this dialogue usher in acceptance of her vision or catalyze a confrontation of ideals? With her heart pounding, Mia stood poised at the threshold of possibility, on the cusp of becoming an integral part of this team, or fading back into uncertainty. The choice lay within their response, and her future would hinge on their willingness to embrace the unknown. Mia forced herself to breathe deeply, centering her thoughts as she faced Leah's steady gaze. Every brow raised, every glance exchanged among the engineers seated around the table felt like a gauntlet thrown down. Yet, beneath that veil of apprehension, a flicker of daring ignited within her. This was her moment to crystallize her vision and reshape not just the project, but her place within the team. "Thank you all for meeting today," Mia began, her voice steadying as she grasped the edge of the table. A presentation was never just about slides. It was about spirit, hers and that of the audience. She connected her introduction to her extensive research, speaking fluidly about user journeys and emotional touchpoints, hoping to weave her passion into every word.
At first, skepticism rippled through the engineers' faces, but she pressed on. She referenced case studies where innovative user experience had driven market success, highlighting the tangible benefits they could reap. Gradually, the tension began to morph. Leah's brow furrowed in concentration. Others scribbled notes, and Mia saw the spark of interest flickering timidly to life. Imagine a product that doesn't just meet user needs, but anticipates them, she urged, her conviction rising. What if we can integrate this interaction into our design, creating seamless experiences that resonate emotionally with users? Each phrase she crafted cradled her determination. After years of feeling diminished among her peers, now the words she spoke felt like an offering, a challenge for them to consider new paradigms together. She noted Leah's intrigued expression shifting into an engaged silence, a look that suggested the seeds of curiosity had taken root. Questions followed her pitch, swirling in the room. Understanding that this was a pivotal moment, Mia embraced
each one, gauging the inquiry's depths, technical critiques, and philosophical concerns alike. Leah's voice, usually so probing, urged deeper thought instead of dismissiveness. "How do we ensure we're not just adding layers of complexity?" Leah asked. "In understanding our users, we find clarity, not complexity," Mia countered. With each engagement, she reinforced the urgency of her perspective, layering her ideas like a painter building a canvas. As the exchange progressed, an unexpected transformation began to take shape. Her confidence burgeoned with every sound of pens moving across paper, every thoughtful nod that reinforced her presence. This was no longer just a defense, it had evolved into a collaborative exploration. She noticed the shift, fear giving way to curiosity, skepticism twisting into a newfound respect. But midst this success, doubt nagged in the periphery. Was this merely a temporary illusion? Could a single meeting truly pivot the project, or perhaps even her career? As the session wrapped, Leah leaned in, eyes bright with enthusiasm. "I'm intrigued, Mia. Let's consider what it would take to implement your ideas." A voice in the room echoed, "I think we should prototype a couple of those journeys." The collective approval buzzed like electricity, and for that moment, Mia stepped back from the precipice where uncertainty had once consumed her. Yet, as she gathered her notes, the echo of her earlier question lingered. Had she truly punctured the corporate fog, or was her vision still too fragile amidst entrenched beliefs? The session had sparked movement, but now she faced an unrelenting reality, the need to execute this newfound momentum and stay the course in a world eager to revert to the familiar. With renewed determination, she considered her next steps. Inspiration awaited, but so did challenges. Would she be able to mold this initial interest into profound, lasting impact among the engineers she now called colleagues? As she left the meeting room, a dawning realization emerged. This was just the beginning of her journey, and the real test lay ahead. With every corridor she walked, she felt a sense of urgency pulse through her. What if the real battle hadn't even started yet? The tension solidified. She had to deliver results, but what awaited her in the challenge of implementing her vision would either affirm her evolution or lay bare her vulnerabilities. The path had opened, but the question lingered. Could she sustain the fire ignited today, or would it flicker out in the shadow of doubt? Mia stepped into the common workspace, a vibrant mix of energy and trepidation swirling within her. Donning her determined outlook, she recalled Leah's words of encouragement as she approached her desk, scattered with memos and outdated reports. Would her colleagues look to her now as their new authority, or would they still see the timid woman who had once struggled to voice her opinions? The atmosphere hummed with the remnants of the meeting, and she felt the burden of responsibility settle on her shoulders. She had turned skeptical eyes her way, but could she maintain that intrigue? Refusing to let doubt have its way, Mia resolved to take specific, actionable steps. It wasn't enough to communicate an idea. She had to build on the momentum and ensure her thoughts and strategies manifested into undeniable results. Her first task was to initiate open dialogues with the engineers. She approached Ben, a senior developer whose expertise in coding was matched only by his reputation for brusqueness. "Can we discuss the prototype process?" she asked, adrenaline spiking as she braced for a potential dismissal. Ben eyed her, suspicion and curiosity flitting across his features. "You plan to change it up? We need stability. New ideas often create more problems." Feeling her heartbeat more fiercely, Mia squared her shoulders. "That's precisely why we need to listen to our users. If we incorporate their feedback early, we mitigate the risks." He paused, considering her statement. "I'll listen, but I need solid data." That moment felt momentous. She had navigated his defenses, and now she had to deliver the evidence that would sway not only him, but the entire team. Days merged into nights as Mia buried herself in data analysis. She pored over user surveys, feedback, and trend reports, meticulously charting insights that revealed what users truly craved. It was invigorating, yet daunting. She knew she had to translate those findings into practical applications that the engineers could act upon. As the sun rose one particular day, she sat before a sea of notes that had become her makeshift strategy board. She noted recurring themes: simplicity, empathy, and anticipation. With each ready-to-launch concept, she visualized a tangible product that would resonate with people. Each revelation felt like a sculpture unveiled from stone, and this exhilarating breakthrough fueled her resolve. Mia arranged a follow-up meeting with Leah, hoping to bolster her position with solid plans. As Leah reviewed the data, Mia perceived the flickering light of engagement in her eyes. "This is compelling, Mia," she said. "Have you considered creating user personas to visualize the emotional journeys?" Mia's stomach fluttered, a blend of anxiety and joy coursing through her. "I hadn't, but that's a brilliant idea. If we infuse the personas into the development process, we can ensure that every feature we design appeals directly to the user's emotional needs." Leah smiled, an encouraging gesture that sparked something deep within Mia. Could this be the change she had yearned for, both professionally and personally? As the meeting proceeded, Mia seized the moment, proposing collaborative brainstorming sessions aimed at transforming theoretical findings into hands-on projects. Just as before, questions surfaced. This time, however, her responses flowed with newfound assurance and clarity. "You've come a long way," Leah remarked as they wrapped up. "Let's pitch this to the team and see how they respond." The idea of sharing her vision ignited a flurry of excitement within her. It was time to confront any remaining doubts head-on. But as she prepared her presentation for the team, Mia felt a familiar creeping sensation. What if her plans were dismissed? What if they chose to stick to the old ways rather than embrace the change she fought so hard to articulate? As she rehearsed her speech in front of the mirror, a sudden realization hit her. The stakes were higher than before. Could she truly inspire transformation in a world so firmly anchored in tradition? Life became a contrasting landscape of hope and anxiety. Suddenly, everything hinged on this moment. She felt more than just a professional obligation. It was about validating her evolution in a relentless environment that seemed intent on resisting change. The time had come to face the team again, armed not only with data, but with a fierce resolve to spark a renaissance in their workflow. A moment that could either solidify her ascent or plunge her back into doubt. With the meeting room looming before her, Mia took a deep breath. Would they rally behind her vision, or would she once again be standing alone against the tide? As she stepped through the door, the question pulsed in the air. Had she truly mastered the courage to lead, or would old habits drown her aspirations? As Mia stepped into the meeting room, the ambient chatter of her colleagues faded into a low murmur. She felt the weight of their anticipation pressing against her, a collective gaze that seemed to scrutinize her every move. A part of her yearned to retreat back behind her desk, but the determination echoing from the depths of her mind pushed her forward. The room fell silent as she took her place at the front. The PowerPoint presentation rendered behind her a visual promise of what she hoped to convey. Her heart raced, each pulse a reminder of how far she had come and how precariously she now stood at the precipice of change. She could almost hear Leah's encouragement in her ear. "You've earned this, Mia." Clearing her throat, she began. "Thank you all for coming. I appreciate you taking the time to consider a different approach to our next product development cycle." As she spoke, she observed her colleagues' expressions, gauging the sparks of skepticism and curiosity igniting in their eyes. Each slight nod or furrowed brow added a layer of complexity to her narrative, driving her to dig deeper. Mia launched into the findings, defining the user personas that Leah had suggested, painting vivid pictures of their needs and emotional journeys. She could see a flicker of recognition dance through some of her coworkers, a glimmer of connection as they refocused their understanding of the project. Each data point she presented felt like a deft brushstroke on the canvas of her vision. User feedback shows a strong desire for more intuitive interfaces, features that anticipate user needs rather than simply react to them. If we engage with our users earlier in the process, we can avoid the pitfalls of tweaking a finished product that may not resonate. With each point, she emphasized how their collaboration could shift the trajectory of the project from a potentially costly failure into something transformative. Yet, as she neared the conclusion of her presentation, doubt flickered at the edges of her mind. How could she ensure their buy-in? The disconnect between her words and the acceptance from the team loomed like a chasm, one she could grasp but not yet cross. One colleague, Jenna, piped up, her tone cautious yet probing. "But Mia, how do we manage the timelines? We can't afford delays during development based on repeated feedback cycles." Mia's throat tightened, a valid concern. She had already anticipated this pushback, the sediment of cautiousness ingrained in the engineering mindset. She took a breath, embracing the pause before her reply. "Incorporating feedback doesn't mean extending timelines. Instead, it allows us to refine our features in real time. A prototype testing phase could actually streamline our development because we'd be addressing potential issues before they escalate. You'll find alignment with user needs from the start, leading to fewer revisions down the line." Mia watched as her point sank in, the murmurs indicating shifts in their perceptions. This was no longer just her challenge. It was a collaborative path they could choose to explore together. Empowered by the dialogue, she sensed the atmosphere beginning to crack with possibility. "That makes sense," Ben finally remarked, crossing his arms, a contemplative look softening his usual brusqueness. "If we can integrate feedback loops, it could save us time in the long run." A wave of relief washed over Mia, but it was tempered by another thought. If they accepted her ideas, she would be stepping further into unfamiliar territory, where expectations of success loomed larger than ever. The dynamic had shifted from doubt to engagement. Still, the stakes had never been higher. Standing at the forefront of this newfound momentum, Mia felt a surge of empowerment, intensified by a flicker of fear. She was ready to lead them into uncharted territory, yet each decision felt like a weight on her shoulders, a burgeoning expectation of performance. Could she navigate the complexities of this transition and truly prove her capabilities? As the session drew to a close and the team began to discuss next steps, Mia caught a glimpse of a future she could help shape. But a question still hung heavy in her mind. Would the momentum she had sparked sustain itself in the turbulent waters of change? With her heart thundering in her chest, she knew the real test lay ahead. She was on the brink of either solidifying her role as a leader or letting the tides of doubt pull her back once more. The journey was just beginning. How far could she lead them, and would they support her vision when challenges arose? As the meeting adjourned, Mia sensed a tremor in the air,
a seismic shift in the dynamics of her workplace. She exchanged hesitant yet hopeful glances with her colleagues as they exited, each one processing the implications of her pitch. Mia felt the exhilarating pull.
Responsibility, a whisper of what lay ahead. Today was a pivotal moment, but tomorrow would unveil the real challenge. The next morning, the sun broke through with an uncharacteristic glow that cast long shadows over her desk. Mia arrived earlier than usual, her mind buzzing with strategies for integrating feedback cycles into the project timeline. She had thrown the seed of change. Now she needed to nurture it to fruition. Gathering her notes, she sketched out a plan. Engaging engineering teams early meant that her previous concerns about timelines needed to be systematically addressed. Operationalizing a feedback loop required clarity and, more critically, full buy-in from the engineering team, something she began to appreciate as perhaps her greatest challenge yet. Not merely convincing them, but also understanding their methodology, their rhythms, would be vital. That afternoon, she asked Ben, her most vocal supporter from the meeting, to join her for coffee. Over steaming cups, she delved into their concerns. "What can I do to ensure this works for our team?" she asked, her voice steady despite her apprehensions. Ben leaned back, considering. "You need to visualize the timeline differently. Instead of the typical linear approach, think of it as a cycle. Every phase ties back into the one before it. Early user testing can feed directly into the design, ensuring we waste less time correcting mistakes." His insight clicked in her mind like a puzzle piece falling into place. Collaborating with him illuminated her own blind spots, helping her realize that successful execution hinged on interpersonal dynamics just as much as the logistical ones. Over the next week, Mia pulled together cross-functional meetings, engaging members from different departments. As she led discussions, she noticed a subtle shift in their demeanor. The lines of skepticism began to blur into intrigue. During one of these sessions, Jenna surprised her by proposing a user journey workshop. "Let's map this out together. We can validate user needs and optimize our design before we even start prototyping." Mia felt a swell of encouragement. Inviting Jenna's initiative hadn't been planned, but was an instinctive pivot she made, recognizing that collaboration from the ground up would be key. However, she felt a nagging worry creeping back. While momentum coalesced, what if the plan faltered during execution? The productive dialogue and synergy in the meetings felt fragile. One slip could send them spiraling back into doubt. Every hour of progress was a delicate balance between excitement and fear. As weeks rolled by, her vision started to materialize into actionable steps. The feedback loops were charted, layers of testing integrated seamlessly into the timeline, and a pilot program established. But with every success, the stakes felt even higher. Mia began to question her readiness for this leadership role. One late afternoon, she found herself alone in the conference room, surrounded by the remnants of strategies laid out on whiteboards. The vibrant colors of her system maps flickered like the doubts in her mind. Could she pull this off? What if their collaborative vision didn't translate to tangible results when the time came to deliver? The feelings teetered on the edge of something profound. She had stumbled upon insights regarding her own leadership, but was she truly the leader they needed? Would her vision transform the project into something winning, or would it become a count of missed expectations? Just then, the door swung open, interrupting her contemplation. It was Leah, her earlier mentor, who now appeared at the threshold with a knowing smile. "I've heard good things about your progress." Mia took a breath, her heart thudding. "I'm trying, but—" Leah stepped forward. "But what?" As the expectations of both the project and her abilities loomed larger, Mia would soon realize that finding her footing was a matter of facing not just the challenge of the project, but the challenge within herself. How would she confront her insecurities when the time came for the all-important test? Mia's gaze was caught between the confidence in Leah's eyes and the uncertainty curling tightly in her stomach. But I'm not sure if I'm the right person for this. What if it all falls apart?" Leah studied her for a moment before responding.
Mia, every leader faces doubt. What sets them apart is how they respond to it. You're already shaping the project. Own that. You can either choose to let fear dictate your actions or focus on the possibilities ahead. Mia absorbed Leah's words, fully aware that her own mindset was the real hurdle. It was a sobering realization. She had secured support and interest, yet her internal narrative remained laced with self-doubt. Shaking her head slightly, she murmured, "I know what you're saying, but I can't help feeling like I'm just winging it. Am I really capable of leading them?" "Leadership isn't about having all the answers," Leah reassured her. "It's about fostering an environment where the best ideas emerge. You are building a culture of collaboration. Remember that." Leah's confidence in her ignited a flicker of determination. It ignited the same excitement she felt when she first made her pitch. Time to transform that flicker into a flame. They spent the next hour going over strategies that would bolster Mia's confidence in her execution. Leah guided her in framing potential roadblocks as opportunities rather than burdens, urging her to view every challenge as a stepping stone. After their discussion, Mia walked out into the office feeling renewed. This time, her steps felt lighter, purposeful. She resolved to address her team's anxieties head-on, not just from the standpoint of a project manager, but someone who understood the value of vulnerability in leadership. In the days that followed, with Leah's encouragement echoing in her mind, Mia initiated an open forum meeting. She structured the session to encourage team members to share their hesitations, knowing transparency would unlock deeper engagement. To her surprise, they responded positively, revealing concerns she had not fully accounted for: the time pressure, a lack of clarity in roles, and real fears of overextending themselves.
Instead of glossing over the tension in the room, Mia leaned into the discomfort. She navigated conversations with empathy, weaving together threads of anxiety and optimism until it transformed into constructive discourse. "What can we do together to lighten this load?" she asked, her heart racing yet resolute. What emerged was an atmosphere of camaraderie that hadn't existed before. Each person in the room contributed ideas for optimizing their approach, illuminating new pathways forward. Mia watched in awe as spirits lifted, and her doubts began to dissipate as her team rallied behind shared goals. Yet, as the energy of collaboration surged, Mia discovered a gnawing realization. While she had scrupulously addressed the immediate concerns, she felt the weight of looming deadlines cutting closer. The pilot program was on the horizon, deadlines tightening like a noose. In those discussions, could they actually execute the ambitious systems they had charted? As the buzz of creativity filled her office, the pressure intensified behind the scenes. Mia was acutely aware of time ticking away. By the end of the week, the plan's ambitiousness was starting to crystallize, but she sensed the team's enthusiasm could falter under the sheer weight of expectation. Knowing that discussions had latched on to a hasty trajectory, she had to intervene. And yet, doubts started creeping back. Was her vision too expansive? Her drive for an innovative approach felt heavier now, like an anchor tied to her achievements, dragging her down. That evening, she returned to the conference room once again, its walls echoing with a mix of excitement and fear as she prepped for the next phase. She scanned her notes, brow furrowed, weighing their implications. Was it time to recalibrate their goals or to amplify their ambitions? As she sat alone with her thoughts, the door creaked slightly, and Ben cautiously entered. "You know," he said, leaning against the doorframe, "I've seen how this team responds to you. You're doing something big here, Mia." His words were like a lifeline amidst her swirling thoughts. But as he spoke, her uncertainty morphed into an urgent question. What if it all unravels when we try to launch? Ben's confident gaze pinned her in place. Or what if it doesn't? In that moment, the weight of their collective success or failure rested in her hands. Mia understood clearly. The real test was ahead, not just for the project, but for her leadership itself. Could she champion their shared will against the tide of doubt?
As she stared back into Ben's encouraging eyes, the flicker of resolve reignited within her. The next morning promised not just a challenge, but a crucial decision about how to push the boundaries of their ambition. With the stakes raised higher than ever, she had to choose: reshape the project to follow smaller, more manageable pathways, or lean fully into the daring potential they had cultivated together. The moment of truth was rapidly approaching, and Mia had to prepare herself not just as a manager, but as the leader her team.
Would she embrace the challenge within herself and fire up the team's collective ambition, or pull back to safeguard against potential failure? Mia took a deep breath, feeling the urgency coursing through her veins as the morning sun streamed through the office windows. Today, she was set to present the pilot program, the culmination of weeks of hard-fought collaboration and relentless planning. The stakes had never been higher, and she needed to harness the momentum built from heartfelt discussions with her team and the excitement bubbling just beneath the surface. Entering the meeting room, she sensed the palpable tension mixed with nervous anticipation. Her colleagues gathered around, their faces a blend of determination and trepidation. It was more than just a project now. It was a shared vision, a testament to their collective creativity and resilience. As she stood before them, the sense of responsibility enveloped her like a cloak, but it carried a weight of pride. She had arrived at this juncture not merely as a delivery girl, but as a pivotal figure steering them into uncharted waters. "Thank you all for joining," she began, her voice steady, resonating with a newfound confidence. "What we are about to present is not just another product. It is a commitment to the users and a reflection of our unified efforts. I believe it showcases our ability to innovate while staying true to the core values we've discussed." Mia deftly navigated through the presentation, illustrating user personas transformed into distinct narratives, intertwining data with human-centered design, an approach that had taken root in her discussions with her colleagues. She emphasized the cyclical feedback process they had established, designed to iterate and refine based on user interaction before the product ever saw a launch. As she spoke, she could see the glimmers of recognition in her colleagues' eyes. They were no longer simply assenting to her vision, but actively engaging with it. Questions flowed, but this time they echoed a spirit of collaboration rather than skepticism. Each inquiry propelled the conversation further, empowering Mia with the realization that she had become an integral part of this team, dedicated to a common cause. "Great job, Mia," Richard said, breaking the initial tension. "Your insights link well with the latest user research. Let's outline how we can structure the testing phases based on your feedback loop model." Mia felt a rush of elation. The acknowledgement from Richard, the lead engineer, was significant. At that moment, doubts about her capacity began to dissolve, replaced by something solid and reassuring: confidence in her expertise and the strength of her ideas. As discussions unfolded, Mia's commitment to transparency allowed her to share her vulnerabilities, admitting that leading this project had been as daunting as it had been exhilarating. "There will be challenges, but that's where we will shine. Each obstacle is an opportunity to recalibrate and ensure we remain responsive to each user's needs," she declared, her voice unwavering. Weeks turned into a whirlwind of activity, but Mia embraced it. She made it a priority to cultivate an environment where each engineer felt their contributions mattered. Daily stand-ups evolved into brainstorming sessions where creativity flowed freely. Each team member built on the ideas of others, exploring solutions rather than racing toward the finish line. They input their reflections on drafts, strategy, and user feedback. Mia fostered connections across disciplines that had once seemed incompatible. After the pilot program's launch, Mia gathered data, watching keenly for patterns. Results trickled in, illustrating an upward trajectory of user engagement.
The energy in the team was electric. Their collective effort transformed anxiety into accomplishment as they navigated through iterative cycles of design and feedback. In one meeting, Leah casually referred to their success as Mia's project, an acknowledgement that filled Mia with gratitude. Yet, it was more than just recognition for her leadership. It was validation of the collaborative spirit that she had nurtured. The actual triumph lay not just in the numbers, but in the profoundly shifted dynamics of the workplace, where voices united, creativity thrived, and resilience flourished amidst uncertainty. As the weeks progressed, Mia stood before her manager, presenting the stunning metrics of their product's performance. The user interaction rates surpassed our initial projections by over 40%, she stated, the gravity of every word sinking in. What started as a challenge has become a beacon of what we can achieve together. I fully believe that our future projects should incorporate this same user-centric, iterative approach. Her manager's nod indicated a shift in perception. It affirmed her transformation from the delivery girl with a spark of innovation to a recognized voice of leadership within the firm. With tangible results behind her, solidified by her colleagues' trust, Mia felt an indescribable sense of fulfillment wash over her. She had overcome the barriers of inadequacy and self-doubt. Her journey of professional growth was far from over, yet she now stood firmly in her identity as a leader. Through dedication, collaboration, and unyielding determination, she had achieved what once felt beyond her grasp. Equipped with the confidence and skills that ran deeper than any prestigious degree, Mia recognized that every obstacle she'd faced had carved out a path, illuminating her rightful place in this world of technology. It wasn't simply about numbers, it was about realizing her worth, the value she brought into every space she occupied. This moment was just the beginning, a promise of more to come. As she clicked through her final presentation slides, she felt ready for whatever lay ahead. Now, you need to subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm, and comment your reactions and theories about Mia's incredible transformation. Don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. True fans of personal overcoming stories understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.